wouldn't it be nice if when they went to prison for those 9 to 10 months, that they learned a job skill, and when they got out of prison, they then went into a program that helped them get into a job where maybe they wouldn't steal another car. Okay. Or they got a drug treatment program that helped them overcome that addiction while they were also going through the job training. And when they come out, they were rid of the drugs and they had a job somewhere and they support themselves, and we never hear from them again. How about that? Wouldn't that be wonderful? All righty. Welcome in to Alabama Politics this week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
Man, if we could figure out a way to let people see the things that we say to each other before this thing comes on, we could charge for this thing and you people would pay it. Well, we got a good one. We got Ron Sparks, the future Ag Commissioner of the state of Alabama, is going to be in. Happy to have him back and in the race. And before we get started, though, I need to tell you about our friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment. Make this thing go around. They're our fine sponsors here. So it's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. And we really do appreciate what they do. I know I've been down to Atmore a couple of times and to Wetumpka a couple of times and spent some time in the casinos in Montgomery as well. And David.
And guess what?
What is that?
I just went to Atmore.
That's right.
I was down there. Well, I think it was a week ago or something like that. I think it was just after we recorded our last episode. I had a board meeting, and the board meeting was held at the Atmore Wind Creek Casino Hotel, and man, had a great time.
Yeah.
The room was excellent. The experience was excellent. And now I understand why you've raved about Fire so much, the restaurant. I mean, we had great food. Yeah. We had great service. It was tremendous.
Yeah, it's a great place. You know, we had a fantastic dinner there. I know you said when you had your dinner there, that was just fantastic, and they had you just went in. They had no idea who you were, And I was thinking, well, hell, I'm getting this treatment, because I was there with some folks from PCI, and they were, so the chairman and some of the other folks were with us in the party there. And so it was fantastic. But, listen, I heard your tale and I was like, well, no, they just treat everybody that way. So that's great to hear. And, it is, honestly, they do a great job. It is top-notch accommodations. It is a gaming experience. Like honestly, you don't expect it. It is anything that I've been in casinos in a lot of different places. I'm not a big gambler. I do some sports gambling here or there. But and I've gone into several casinos over the years, and it rivals anything I've ever been into. Okay, it does.
Same here.
It doesn't, obviously you don't have the table games, but you have everything else there, and you have the experience, and it is really a remarkable experience to go. They've got the food, they've got the spas, they have the children's entertainment with the arcade and the bowling and the movie theater, and the outdoor area, that little resort area with the pool and everything outside is it's great accommodations, and they're good people. The reason I was in the Montgomery location was because my wife, for a period of time, worked for a nonprofit, and they allowed her to host events over there at their place, and was really, really kind in doing so. So we've had a good relationship with them, and they've got a good relationship with a lot of people, and we really do appreciate what they do with us here on the podcast. So check them out if you can. Wind Creek Entertainment online. Google them up. Go book you a stay. Take your wife. Take your significant other. Take whoever you can and go have a good, fun time. Plus, it's down in South Alabama where they usually don't get snow and ice and that. It's a little bit warmer, and you can get out of this bullshit that's happening up here. Whatever is going to go on, which probably just be a nice cold rain. Let's hope
so. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into this here. As we get started, the thing we wanted to get into first, our friend of the show, Beth Shelburne, one of the finest reporters that works today in this state, and honestly, the most befuddling reporter in the world to me, because I have no idea how she remains so upbeat and positive, given what she encounters and covers and talks about and deals with on a daily basis. I have no idea how she has a hair left in her head that she hasn't pulled out yet, dealing with the Alabama Department of Corrections and the atrocities that occur in our prisons on a daily basis. And you were telling me, I saw the video, but uh, I, so just let me explain, because I don't want people to think I just saw a video by Beth and didn't watch it. But I was, I helped put my daughter to sleep at night, and I was kind of, we had read and she was falling asleep. And so I was just kind of laying there scrolling through the phone. She was going to sleep, and I saw Beth's video and thought I need to go back and watch and see what she's saying. And I never made it back to that. So what was the video?
So I guess it was last week. I think it was last week, late last week, or it may have been over the weekend. Beth posted on Facebook a video in which she was describing the current situation of Robert Earl Counsel, Melvin Ray, and Raul Poole. Now, if any of those names ring a bell, these are the three main whistleblowers, as I recall, in the brilliant documentary that Beth helped to produce called The Alabama Solution. And, we had Beth on talking about it. It's gotten a tremendous amount of press in the state and across the country. In fact, I think they're on a tour right now. They're hitting various cities. And I even saw a headline. I couldn't find the story, but I even saw a headline that suggested that they might be up for Oscar consideration,
Ooh.
which I really hope happens, because we need this story to be elevated as much as possible about what's going on in Alabama prisons. But anyway, Beth posted this video in which she was saying that these three men, Counsel, Ray, and Poole, have apparently been transferred from the prison that they were in, that got all of that coverage, to, I believe it is Kilby Prison. And they believe that they have been placed into solitary confinement. And they think that this was a retaliatory act, done by the Department of Corrections, because of probably two things, it sounds like, from what she said. One, the fact that apparently these men were looking into leading a labor strike, if I understand it, inside the prison. And then, of course, the other more obvious reason is because, they were whistleblowers and had helped blown the lid off of what has been going on in Alabama prisons for years. And I got to say, I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast before or not, but a very good friend of mine had one of his sons was incarcerated. This was probably 20 years ago or so, Josh. And and even 20 years ago, this friend of mine was telling me about the stuff that his son was telling him about what was going on in the prisons. And it was horrible sounding back then. And of course, with the Alabama Solution, we all got a firsthand look at a lot of the atrocities and so forth. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that we help to amplify Beth's message. And this is also coming from some other people as well who have connections to these men, that it's believed that they've been transferred and are being punished by being put into solitary confinement.
Yeah, that's no, it's certainly believable. Matter of fact, saying that they weren't would be more unbelievable than the fact that they are.
Right. Right.
And you mentioned that about 20 years ago. Even 20 years ago, you said that Alabama's prisons have been horrid places for decades now. In the 70s, there was a federal takeover of Alabama's prisons. Federal Judge Frank Johnson, passed that, and it's just been so we've had, I mean, they've never been humane places. They've never operated efficiently. They've never operated in the best interest of the public, because you can say whatever you want to say and believe whatever you want to believe. But the fact of the matter is that operating the prisons the way Alabama has done it has not been in the best interest of the state of Alabama. Has never been. Not for anybody out there. I don't care who you're talking about and why, whether you believe that this is punishment for these people who have done bad things or not, but it's not. And that's not what we're trying to do at this point. The punishment is the incarceration and being locked up away from your friends and your families, losing your freedoms, losing certain different things out of your life that other people enjoy on a daily basis. Just the freedom to get in the car and go grab a sandwich somewhere. Okay. That's the punishment. Okay. That's the punishment. Being beaten repeatedly, being, having your ailments uncared for, being tossed aside by guards or beaten by guards, being subjected to whatever kidnapping situations are taking place in the prisons, whatever extortions are taking place in the prisons. Those are not just acceptable punishments for doing bad things. Okay.
That's right.
Those are crimes. Those are crimes, okay? Those are crimes against other human beings who deserve some rights and protections under our laws that we're not providing them in prisons, not adequately enough, obviously. And also, in addition to that, it is the Alabama Department of Corrections, not the Alabama Department of Punishments. It's the Alabama Department of Corrections, which implies by its very name that we're going to impose some corrective action here to make sure that the people that we're incarcerating and taking away their freedoms for whatever behavior that they have had, we're going to correct that behavior and transform them back into model citizens that can go out and lead productive lives and be productive citizens, because that is what is in the best interest of the people of this state. It's just, as they are, they are just sucking money out of this system, and they're doing nothing productive on a daily basis. That's not what we want out of anybody, and it's not what we should be paying for. You're paying for this. You're paying billions and billions of dollars for this every year, and we could pay so much less if we did it better. I don't understand how people don't understand this. How is this? I don't understand how we don't fix this, and we act as though. What bothers me more than anything is these people who act as though fixing it is like a liberal cause or some shit, and not fixing it is the conservative macho way to go.
Right,
it's stupid.
Right,
You're a stupid person.
It's a really. Yeah, I agree with you. It's an ignorant way to look at the situation. And then I would add on top of that, we tend to forget, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's some puritanical strain of DNA that's inside of so many people in this country today, but we tend to forget that these are human beings. And especially what galls me, Josh, is that a lot of the people who seem to be callous toward what happens to those in prison are people that go to church every weekend, and they read the Bible, and they forget about the part of the Bible in the book of Matthew, I think it's the 25th chapter, 28th chapter, whatever it is, where Jesus explicitly says that one of the things, and he's going to be asking people at the end of days, is, or saying to people, he's going to be saying to them, I was in prison and you didn't visit me. And the implication there is not just the literal words, but the broader idea that the people who are incarcerated, whether they are guilty or whether they are innocent, are still human beings. And if you believe in the Bible or the Torah or the Quran, then you understand they were created in the image of God, or you believe they were created in the image of God, just like the rest of us, And so, to treat them as anything less than human beings, to treat them as anything less than people who also embody the image and the essence of God, is in and of itself a violation of the very thing that many of us who claim to be Abrahamic believers, Christians, Muslims, Jews, that we claim to believe. It's in violation of that. It blows
Yeah.
my mind that we
Yeah.
don't see that.
I just, from any way you look at it, it just, it's such a waste. It's such a way, I mean, I don't dispute a word that you just said, from a religious perspective on this thing. Now, I mean, I don't know how anybody could, but even if you want to remove religion from it and we just want to look at it from a practical standpoint, it's stupid. If we want to look at it from a humanitarian standpoint, it's stupid. If we want to look at it from a punishment standpoint, it's stupid. It's all so ignorant. It's also there's nothing that the way our prisons are. There is no person right now walking around, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what sort of stance you take, there is nobody who can tell you the good that comes from the way we do this. Nobody. There's nothing. We spend more money. We cause more harm. It leads to more federal lawsuits. There's no good. It does nothing for the people involved. It puts the people who are overseeing it in danger. It's a black eye for the people who are our lawmakers who are supposed to be in charge of these things. There's no positive to the way we're operating our Alabama Department of Corrections. And that's before we even get into just the outright lying about things that they do, that these folks have done over and over and over at the top of these. What in the world, man? I mean, some of the things that they explain about how these folks died in these prisons, it's atrocious. The fact that they hide it for weeks from their families, that they won't explain to the families what's going on, that they give them zero information about stuff, about, their loved ones and stuff. What are you serving? What are you serving out of this? What good does this do to be an asshole to these people? They didn't do anything. It's their loved one who's in prison. Yes, that person made not a mistake. He screwed up. He did something wrong. Okay. That person most likely did something wrong. All right. And he's incarcerated for it and is paying this punishment for this. But what good is it for you to then come and act as though the family members are also somehow responsible or should be punished? And none of this is a positive in any way, shape, or form. And it just is completely mind-boggling to me that we continue to do it this way. I just don't understand it.
And then we've got the cases where, and I'm not suggesting that this is the majority of cases, of people incarcerated, but we got cases like Anthony Hinton. And I was looking around trying to find his book on my bookshelf. I can't find it right now, but Anthony Hinton, the man who was the focus of the movie Just Mercy that Michael B. Jordan starred in, and as Brian Stevenson, and Jamie Foxx played Mr. Hinton in the movie. Somebody like him who was falsely accused of murder, and it took a Brian Stevenson getting him off death row and out of prison. There are those people who are incarcerated too, and they are being subjected. If you want to have the mindset that because somebody is guilty of a crime, they deserve everything that's coming to them, I agree with Josh that is a false, ignorant mindset. But then what about the people who are in there who really shouldn't have been in there in the first place?
Yeah.
And then they're being subjected to all this stuff too. You at least should be able to feel something for them, and they do exist.
Yes. And, but the thing of it that always gets me is that the overwhelming majority of people who are in there for some level of property crime. That it's, and they've done something. Most of them have been hooked on some, drugs or done something involving
Right.
drugs. That's the overwhelming majority of people who are in there. And, it just, I got a real hard time saying they get whatever's coming to them because they made an addiction, sort of mistake or decision.
Exactly.
And but even beyond that, what are we going to do? Are we just going to pay for those folks to remain in prison for the rest of their lives? I mean, is that what you want to do? Is that what you want to continue to do? Because we've done a very poor job of maintaining the drug treatment programs. We've done a very poor job of maintaining the continuing education programs in prison. We've done a very poor job of maintaining the job training programs in prison. And we've done a fantastic job of allowing gangs and various other schemes to take place in their prisons. To the point, I mean, where it's become kind of its own industry to have folks shuffling drugs in and out of these places, all right, and contraband.
That's right.
And so, you know, what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? Do you want to keep paying for these folks forever? Because that's what you're doing. You know, I mean, let's just look at it from a practical standpoint. From a practical standpoint, wouldn't you say that we're sentencing this person who stole your car? You know, we're sentencing them to 9-10 months in prison. They're going to go into prison. And wouldn't it be nice if when they went to prison for those 9 to 10 months, that they learned a job skill, and when they got out of prison, they then went into a program that helped them get into a job where maybe they wouldn't steal another car. Okay. Or they got a drug treatment program that helped them overcome that addiction while they were also going through the job training. And when they come out, they were rid of the drugs and they had a job somewhere and they've supported themselves, and we never hear from them again. How about that? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
That's what would be ideal, man. And it's possible. There's a young man that I used to visit in, I won't say where, but in one of the local jails here. And I visited him because I'd known him since he was a little boy, and his father and I were friends since college. And I remember when he first got out, I just happened to be, I happened to be at a funeral at a church, and I looked up and came to realize that he was there. You know, we started talking, and he was telling me about what he was doing in his life at that point, and he was being a productive citizen, which is what, you know, I think he wanted to be all the time. You know, he may have made, and I don't know his full story, but he may have made a mistake. He may have done something he shouldn't have done, but, you know, he had some complicating issues, I believe, in his life at the time, you know, that led him to make some choices that he perhaps shouldn't have made. And, but when he was out, you know, he was being productive. And I think that there are so many people who, given the chance, given the opportunity, with the right kind of support system and the right opportunities to truly be rehabilitated, they can become tremendously productive members of society. You know, why are we so willing to discard people and to damn people to a life of despair and recidivism? Why is that?
I don't know. It just, for all the complaining about the amount of cost that goes into this, it just seems to me so stupid to then not care about why you're paying all the money. You know, I mean, this is the reason you're paying all the money is you're not doing the thing right. And, you know, I've said it 1,000 times at this point. It costs less to have good prisons than it does to have bad prisons. Okay. It costs less. All right. We're about to spend $2 billion on prisons. Okay. And and we're still going to have most of the same problems, even after doing that. It defies all logic.
But you and I also know, well, or I'll say we believe strongly and have reason to believe strongly that a part of the reason Alabama is in the prison industrial complex business is because it's a racket.
Yeah.
Because there are people, there are entities that are personally benefiting. I may not be able to prove it, but that's what common sense tells me, because there's just too much of a commitment to and an investment in, you know, making sure that we're spending, as you've indicated, literally billions of dollars on prisons.
Yeah, it drives me nuts, and it drives me nuts to hear it never get brought up. You know, it never get brought up when we're talking about agendas and what we're going to do for the, for these sessions and stuff. We spend, that's a huge chunk of our budget every year. It's a
Yeah.
huge chunk of
Yeah.
the budget, trying to figure out what we're going to do with healthcare in our prisons and figuring out what we're going to do with just simple, maintaining the prisons. Now we're spending $2 billion and, it's a huge chunk out of our budget every year. And it's a lot of it's just kind of going down the drain because we're not, I would say a majority of it is going down the drain because we're not doing the things that we should do to make sure that these folks are put on a pathway back to. And what also drives me insane is this. And we have this problem with so many different facets of our government in Alabama. And it's this, we pretend like we're the only ones doing this, and there are other states that are doing this and doing it very well. Okay.
Mhm.
As Alabama ranks worst, there are states that rank best. Why don't we talk to them and say, hey, what you doing? Could you help us out? Could you give us some advice? Could you come in here and say, hey, you shouldn't do this. You should do this. You should put the funding in this instead of that. You should maybe crack down on how you're handling your guards, or you should pay the guards more so they have more of an incentive not to do these things on the side and to also rat out the people who are doing it poorly so you can get better people into these jobs. And, those sorts of things. There's a way forward to do this, but we seem completely uninterested in it. And then we take great pride in fighting the federal government whenever they show up to say, hey, you're really screwing this shit up, man.
Yeah, well, I think it's a replay, really, the 21st century equivalent of what was happening during the slave era. I think it's slavery by another name. You got people who were incarcerated, who are, and I'm saying slavery specifically because we know that many of these people, I don't know what the percentages are, but many of these people are put to work for
Yes.
pennies on the dollar.
Yep.
Pennies on the dollar for private
pennies on the dollar.
entities.
Mhm.
Yes, for private entities, and for the government, and so they're getting this damn near slave labor equivalent, and they're building the backs of government and business
Yeah.
on the backs of these people.
Yeah.
It's slavery by another name, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, and
Yeah,
that's
it's,
part of the racket that I was talking about.
Oh, sure it is, and you've seen it. There have been some cases, that have been highlighted, especially back when we were, having such a huge problem with the parole board not paroling anybody, and they started going through and examining some of these cases, and I think a lot of that kind of showed itself where we were talking about people who had for years been going out and being basically unsupervised completely. Working at the governor's mansion, working at various places in government, doing jobs around people every day, trusted to drive all over the place, handle equipment that could be deemed deadly equipment, and they've been doing it for a long, long time. And yet somehow or another kept being denied parole,
Yep.
just
Yep.
continued to
Yep.
be, and it made no sense whatsoever that when that person could have gone out and been put on at a halfway house, for example, and then they could have gone out and gotten a real job, somewhere with real pay and been put on a pathway to self-sustaining themselves out there and becoming productive citizens and making sure that we're not paying for that, but instead we're paying for the labor. We're paying for the labor of these folks and in the meantime, mistreating them as well. And, man, you got to think that a lot of the bad that happens in this state is the karma for the way that we treat people, and that's I think that's a real reason why we can't get ahead in a lot of ways is because, we treat people so poorly on purpose a lot of times. And it comes back to haunt us in 1,000 different ways. And, and until we do that, until we start focusing a little more on helping folks and doing it the right way, I don't think that we're ever going to get over some of this stuff. And I don't think we'll ever be able to move ahead.
It's like Celie in The Color Purple. Until you do right by me, Alabama. Until you do right by me, everything you touch. It's like that. That's
Yeah,
what we're doing
yeah,
to ourselves.
yeah. It's true. It's or as Tony Soprano said, we're kind of like King Midas in reverse. Everything we touch turns to shit. And it's
Oh, is that what he said?
yeah, yeah.
The great Tony Soprano.
Yeah, Tony had a way of a way with words.
Had a way
But
with
yeah, I mean,
words,
I
yeah.
just it just continues to do this, and I know that we talk about it from time to time, and some people will focus on it, and I know, and I also know some of the problem is out of sight, out of mind with a lot of these people, and a lot of the problems that we don't deal with it on a daily basis. It's not right in front of us. We tend to forget it. It's terrible to talk about. It's terrible to think about, but I mean, I just, it just always confuses me that we insist on doing it for people who claim to be so worried about fraud and abuse and waste of taxpayer money. And also so many people here claim to be such great pro-life Christians and loving each
Yeah,
other and
that's
wanting to
right.
treat each other well and good, that we all everybody involved turns a blind eye to this, and it just is continually befuddling. All righty, let's get out of here. We're gonna come back in just a minute on the other side with Ron Sparks. We'll talk to him about getting back in the game and getting the game fixed.
Mm-hmm.
For Alabama farmers and for a lot of folks in the industry and consumers. So we'll talk to him about all that in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.